When we think about healthy eating, we usually think about what we eat and how much we eat, but we should also think about how we are cooking the food we eat. So, let's talk about cooking methods and how they can make the food we eat healthier. The healthiest way to cook is to use little or no fat and added flavors without using a lot of salt or sugar. Let's start with the healthiest way we can cook our food. Baking is a healthy option that cooks food in the oven slowly. Roasting is when you cook meat, like chicken, in the oven without added fat. Instead, when roasting your food, use fat-free liquids like water or low-sodium broth to add flavor to your meat and stop it from getting too dry. Steaming is cooking over boiling water in a covered pan and using the steam from the water to cook your food. Sautéing is cooking food quickly in a pan over direct heat, like the stovetop. To make this healthier, try using low-sodium broth or non-stick cooking sprays, because these methods add less fat and calories. Stir-frying is when you cook small pieces of meat and vegetables over very high heat on the stovetop. To avoid burning your food, stir continuously and use sesame, canola, or avocado oil to make this healthier. Poaching is cooking fish or eggs in a simmering liquid over direct heat. It uses no fat and keeps food moist. Braising is cooking food very slowly in the oven, on the stove, or in a slow cooker. To make this healthy, add liquids such as water or broth to keep food from getting dry. Broiling is cooking food using the hot coil on the roof of your oven at high heat. This quickly browns and crisps food. Grilling is cooking food directly on a rack over a heat source like an open flame. You can brush meat and vegetables with herbs, garlic, and olive oil to make them tastier without adding too many calories. Microwaving is the quickest way to cook food. Use healthy oils, sauces, and seasonings while cooking in the microwave. Use herbs and spices to flavor your food rather than pre-made marinades or spice mixes. While these are okay in small amounts, they have lots of sugar and salt. You should also avoid using a lot of ketchup, barbecue sauce, and teriyaki sauce. Instead, try flavoring your food with lemon and lime, vinegars, salsa, minced garlic, grated ginger, and roasted peppers. For ideas about using herbs and spices together, check out the accompanying handout to this video. Did you know that you can also make food healthier by changing the way you prepare it? Here are a few tips to get you started. Trim or cut off all the fat you can see on meats before cooking them. Fat is usually white. Cook vegetables until they are tender but still crisp to avoid losing valuable nutrients. When buying canned foods, choose low sodium or no added salt options. Drain and rinse canned foods under running water to remove any extra salt. Remember that ingredients like flour and breadcrumbs add extra carbohydrates and calories to your food. Cooked onion, tomatoes, and roasted peppers are a great way to add sweetness to your food without using sugar. Want to take a deep dive on cooking methods? Check out your accompanying handout for more information.